U Beogradu je danas u hotelu Crown Plaza počeo prvi kongres Srpskog udruženja za karcinome kože, nacionalni skup sa međunarodnim učešćem koji predstavlja važan korak u unapređenju borbe protiv raka kože u regionu. Kongres koji će trajati do 12. aprila organizuje Srpsko udruženje za karcinome kože, nastavnik Srpskog udruženja za dermoskopiju, osnovanog 2002. godine u Beogradu. Događaj okuplja veliki broj domaćih i stranih stručnjaka, a poseban značaj skupu daje prisustvo renomiranih svetskih imena iz oblasti onkologije i dermatologije, među kojima dr. Alessandro Testori i dr. Aleksandro Eggermont. Njihovo učešće pokazuje važnost ovog kongresa i uopšte ovakvog skupa. Kroz bogat program koji obuhvata predavanje, radionice i diskusije, učesnici razmenjuju iskustva i najnovije saznanja o dijagnostici, lečenju i praćenju pacijenata sa rakom kože. Mi ćemo sada porazgovarati sa organizatorima skupa kao i sa nekim od najvažnijih predavača.
Well, it's not the first time I come to Belgrade, invited by our friends, and it's always a pleasure to be here. The Congress, it's a very important moment of communication of the new research results that we obtain, both from the dermoscopy and diagnostic point of view, from also the surgical and medical aspects, which are important for the percentage of patients who do not succeed to be cured just with the skin excision of the tumor of the skin.
Qualified persons in your country, because you come from Italy, and do you think that the cooperation is well established? That is the first question. The second is, how do you see the future in that field concerning that artificial intelligence is more coming into the diagnostic, and your opinion on that market?
In terms of organization in Italy of the diagnostic setting, I think it's very good, because I think Italy is one of the countries in the world with the highest number of dermatologists in between the different specialties. So we have the possibility, we offer the possibility to all patients to get an early visit, which is very important, because there are countries where instead it takes months to see a dermatologist, and this fortunately in Italy is not the situation. The devices that we use are, of course, the dermoscope, which is a fundamental device to get a correct diagnosis of skin lesions. In terms of the new way to support medical doctors, which is artificial intelligence, of course it's of great importance. We are now developing new devices with automatic dermoscopy evaluation, and this is, along with the automatic mole mapping, a method that will certainly help the clinics where you have a lot of patients to follow up, to see in a situation of thousands of moles on the skin of a patient that single lesion that requires a more accurate evaluation and eventually the excision. So it's absolutely useful, I think, to combine the quality of doctors with the new devices that the informatics bring us, which is, of course, the automatic machines to help to follow up our patients.
The impressions about the Congress, about the Belgrade, about the social life, and that's it.
So, first the Congress.
Yeah, of course.
So, our great friend, Dejan Nikolic, is a driving force here, and with a lot of international exposure. But this kind of a meeting is very important for this part of Europe, to have a meeting where you can have communication, interchange, models for working together and all this. So it's a very lively meeting with lots of discussion and interaction. So I think it's wonderful.
What about how we can prevent the early revealing of skin cancers, and how can patients reveal by themselves skin cancers at early stage, so they can be cured at time, and come to prescribe.
So the cutaneous, the skin cancers like melanoma and cutaneous squamous cell cancers are related to the mutation rate induced by UV light exposure. And that's one of the main causes why we see a steady increase in these type of skin cancers because of unprotected sun exposure. That's a very general population type of remark, and so we have protecting agents, but we also have campaigns to warn people to go into sunbathing parlors, right? Tanning saloons to not overexpose the risks of UV light overexposure. What usually helps best in those campaigns is to tell them that it ages your skin much more rapidly and that you will get a lot of wrinkles. And the people listen better to those messages than to a risk of developing a cutaneous squamous cell carcinoma or a melanoma, quite honestly. Secondly, there is a potential genetic proposition risk in your family, and so if there are cases in the family somewhere, or if you have many moles, if you have many pigmented moles, right, then you are per definition at a higher risk that one of those would eventually develop a melanoma. So those patients usually are being followed up by dermatologists for follow-up pictures and dermoscopy type of visits to identify if any of the lesions are changing, and then that might indicate that you need a biopsy to see if it's a changing lesion that could be a melanoma, for instance. So that's already an identified higher risk group within your patient population. Then the third population are patients who have received certain treatments that have an impact on the functioning of their immune system, which leads to an enhanced development of squamous cell cancers, basaliomas, and potentially also melanomas. And these are the immunosuppressed patients, like patients who had a kidney transplant. And they indeed have a very high risk of developing one of those skin cancers, but they are already followed up by their specialists, and they should also look very well at the skin if one of those lesions is emerging. Those are the three groups and the strategies.
So the question is about the incidence of skin cancers. Is the incidence of skin cancers rising up because of the thinner ozone layer and climate changes that are changing in the world, in the Earth? So that's the question.
So the rising trend all the time of the increase of skin cancers is multifactorial. Ozone layers may have something to do with it, and we know it's one of the reasons why in Australia you have the highest incidence of skin cancers. But basically, it's also the very white-skinned population that emigrated from the United Kingdom and Scotland to go to Australia, and they have the wrong skin type to be living there under those sunny conditions. Then there is an economic factor. We have, or large parts, have the money to go for sunbathing vacations in Spain, in California, Mexico, in Florida, etc., etc. That leads to an increase in skin cancers. So there's also an economic wealth factor. So that also means that you can intervene with your warning system, how to work with your exposure increase to UV light, how to deal with it, and protect yourself against this. But it's quite obvious that the incidence of cutaneous skin melanoma in Asia, in China, in Japan, Korea, India, is only 5% compared to what it is in the white population, dominated population in Europe, in the United States, and so on. So these risk factors determine also then with an increased UV light exposure, habit, lifestyle, to the increase of the melanomas and the skin cancers. And the interesting thing is that they are being diagnosed much more frequently than before because of also a greater awareness of patients who go to doctors and say, well, something this, something that. They didn't do that 40 years ago. So there are more diagnostic acts, interventions, biopsies, etc., which also contributes to the rise in skin cancers incidence, but there are more and more very thin, low-risk lesions being identified. So there is not clearly an increase in mortality because most of the increase of skin cancers are very early skin cancers.